Okay, man. It's been a very, very interesting day in the world.
It really has been a very interesting day in the world.
Yeah. So there was this woman, and she was on an airplane, and she was flying to meet her fiance, sailing high above the largest ocean on planet Earth. And she was seated next to this man who, you know, she tried to start conversations, and the only thing she heard him say was to order his Bloody Mary. And she was sitting there and she was reading this really arduous magazine article about a third world country that she couldn't even pronounce the name of. And she was feeling very bored and very despondent. And then suddenly there was this huge mechanical failure, and one of the engines gave out. And they started just falling 30,000 feet, and the pilot's on the microphone, and he's saying, I'm sorry, oh my God, I'm sorry, and apologizing. And she looks at the man, and she says, where are we going? And he looks at her and he says, we're going to a party. It's a birthday party. It's your birthday party. Happy birthday, darling. We love you very, 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 very much. And then he starts humming this little tune, and it kind of goes like this. It's kind of 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
We're going to get a copyright strike for that.
And welcome back, everybody, to the best music podcast on this side of the Mississippi. This podcast is called Hey Listen to This, and it is hosted by two dashingly good-looking men who share the same middle name. I'm the one. I am the only. I'm the one who comes up with obscenely long intros for our podcast, Ryan James Kearns.
And I'm the one, the only Matthew James Durzik. And spoiler alert, he did not come up with that intro.
I ripped it, we'll get into where I ripped that from.
Yes.
So, if this is your very first time tuning into this show here, first of all, welcome. Second of all, what we do here is every week me and Matt take turns picking albums that we're going to dissect track by track. And the reason why we bring these albums to the table could be for like a couple different reasons. A, it could be a very classic album. B, it could just be an album that both me and Matt have, personally have enjoyed in the past on our outside of like the show here, and we wanted to bring it to the table because we want the other person to experience it. And yeah, what's another reason why we might be discussing an album, Matt?
Another reason we might be discussing an album is maybe just, we maybe just feeling it, whether it's a case of feeling frustrated or feeling topical, or like you suggested last week, feeling joy. So yeah, and also we've run the gamut from like 50s jazz to pop music from this very year of 2024. Last week we sort of were in the middle of that because we did the debut album by one Ricky Lee Jones from 1979, an album that I think we both generally enjoyed for the most part. Despite certain person's qualms about singing.
I still haven't, revisited that album.
I honestly, ever since I stopped listening to it, the only songs I've listened to are my two favorites, which are, you can listen to the episode and find that out.
Yeah. So, this week, Matt.
It was your turn.
It is finally time that we discuss an album that, I've been chomping at the bit to discuss over this, I would say probably a whole calendar year.
At least.
Yeah.
At least. I mean, I know at least twice you have recommended this album as follow-up listening for whatever album that we were listening to at the end of our episodes. And for a couple of times, it's been on the side of the losing end of me picking what album we were going to listen to next. So now we finally have got to the point where we are reviewing this bridesmaid of an album. It is now the day for it to become the bride. What are we reviewing today?
So, the album that we're going to be reviewing today, it's going to be the 6th studio album by indie darlings, Bright Eyes, and that album is called I'm Wide Awake, It's Morning. The album itself was released January 19th, 2005, and for those of you who are like, Ryan, I don't know what a Bright Eyes is. Okay. Secondly, Bright Eyes is essentially, like I said, they really came on into the scene in the early 2000s. They were, like I said, the indie darlings of, like, singers, songwriters, they kind of caught the audience of people who wanted to transition out of their emo phase and go into like more of an indie rock, like kind of like a hipster kind of phase. That's initially like how I caught wind of them, and this album and another album that I'm going to be talking about really cemented my relationship with the band. But the band is fronted and it was originally founded by singer and songwriter and guitarist Conor Oberst, who we've talked about, kind of as being a background figure in the Boy Genius scene, more specifically with Phoebe Bridgers. And also the other, members of the group are Mike Mogis. He is the multi-instrumentalist and producer. And then you also got the arranger, composer, and trumpet and piano player Nate Walcott. And then there's also a rotating line up of collaborators, mainly drawing from the Omaha indie music scene. And like I said, they basically had their big run between 1998 and 2011, having hit albums the first one being in 2000, Fevers and Mirrors. And the next one popped up in 2003. That album is Lifted, or The Story is in the Soil, Keep Your Ear to the Ground. Panic at the Disco saw that album title and was just like, yes.
Right. And then Fall Out Boy saw what they were doing and were like, yes.
And another album that basically was a notable album in Bright Eyes' earlier discography is A Digital Ash and A Digital Urn. And then, that was released in 2005. And then we also get this album that was released in 2005.
Yeah, from what research I've done, I believe this album and Digital Ash and Digital Urn were actually released on the same day in 2005. So, sort of a Nelly situation of the time, if you will.
Yeah.
For those who remember. So,
my relationship with the band is when I was developing my musical taste, post exposure to that one Rolling Stone magazine that I bought, and I discovered My Morning Jacket, and really pivoted away from that classic rock stuff, and really was seeking out what people would consider to be underground. I really call Bright Eyes too much of an underground kind of band, especially with this album here that we're talking about. But I've always respected the work that Conor has brought to the table. I honestly believe that he hasn't put a bad album out by any means. I can understand if people aren't really into him. We'll get into reasons why later in this episode. But I've always been a huge fan of this band. And when the group came back in 2020 and they released their album Down in the Weeds, Where the World Once Was, I was really happy. I was taken back by that album. It was really good. For that album to get released during the pandemic, it was really good for me from not only my mental health standpoint, but just for a musical enjoyment standpoint. And then this year, they actually released an album not too long ago called Five Dice All Threes. I've dug that album quite a bit. I haven't dug into it nearly as much as I like in terms of playing it as much as I should have. Maybe after this episode. I feel like I say that with like a lot of the records that we talk about. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, hey, I'm going to do that. And it never happens.
Well, I mean, it's understandable. I mean, we're adults. We got shit to do.
Yeah, I have an attention span of a goldfish. I mean, we live in a day and age where like I'm subscribed to Spotify and I can literally type in anything on my phone right now and I can listen to it.
Swedish Japanese death metal.
Oh, don't tempt me. Oh, man. So, Matt, what is your relationship with Bright Eyes?
Pretty similar to your relationship with Ricky Lee Jones heading into last week's episode, where it's like, hey, I guess a little bit more deep than that, just a smidge, because again, you've been pushing for this album throughout the entirety of this podcast for a while now. And I will say there's one song I'm familiar with from them because of you, and I say that's a decent segue to go right into the album review itself, because that song kicks off this album, and it is the song At the Bottom of Everything, a song that, before you start getting into your details, I'll let you lead off, is a song that not only have you shown me the video for multiple times, but also have mentioned to me that it has at one point in your life been your alarm clock.
Yes, and too bad my wife isn't like in the house right now to make any commentary on it. But yeah, the chorus was like my alarm clock, and it was a good time for me. She didn't enjoy it nearly as much. Yeah, what an excellent way to lead off the album. Like, this song rules in all sense of the words. It's not a perfect song. There's one ding I'm gonna give it. And I'm going to start right out of the gate and say the backing vocals that happen with Jim James, it's recorded pretty weird. It almost seems like he's in another room. And it takes away from the experience for me. But that being said, overall, I love this song. Like I said, the opening dialogue that occurs to kick off the album, it's so organic, and I love candid moments in the studio like this, where you can really picture yourself being in the room with Connor while he's recording it. And also the way that he transitions out of that dialogue and just kicks off like almost like kind of a lighthearted, like an acoustic singer-songwriter kind of song. It's pretty smooth as butter. And diving into the verses, the first couple verses here are all about embracing a spirit of rebellion. And you get lyrics like, him talking about like, set fire to the preacher that is promising us hell. And that's it. That lyric alone is just like, hey, yo, preacher, you're going to say like, we're all going to go to hell? Hey, bye-bye. Sticking the middle finger to religion there. And then you get the final two verses that draw parallels to societal compliance, and lyrics that exemplify that are, in this endless race for property and privilege to be won, we must run, we must run, we must run. And it sets the scene for Connor's worldview, in that he takes issues with like how the world is structured as a whole, and he wants to have this sense of rebellion against it. And yeah, like I really do dig this song, and it really just introduces the group to the listener in such a great way, because you get great lyrics, great vocal deliveries, and a really well-structured song as a whole.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on this. I think it is a great introduction to the album and the band itself. Again, the lyrics just sort of, defying everything around. I have in my notes that it's basically the band on the Titanic while it's singing, but on steroids. Because basically, instead of just saying, one more tune, lads, the whole ship is singing, the ship, of course, being, everyday life. And Conor Oberst is basically saying, look at this cool guitar solo I can do. Which is just like not only embracing, the situation, but just like turning it into the best situation he possibly can. Which is, again, just a very striking idea in of itself. the idea of choosing death as a welcome solution to, in a sense, dying. It's a very energetic song about ultimately a very bleak topic. I was not as turned off by the harmonies as you were, because I've listened to it a couple times in a couple different ways, and both times I'm like, okay, that's fine. I mean, it's not the best harmonies on the album. We'll get to those. But I'm right there with you. This is a nice jumpy tune to really introduce the band to, again, not just, casual listeners of Bright Eyes, but their fans as well. And I have this in my top 3 at number 3.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Letting the listener know right now, I have a top 3 and a bottom nothing.
I also have a top 3 and a bottom nothing.
Hey! So...
This is not in your top 3?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, okay. I was not prepared for this.
You're like, I don't know what to do now.
I was going to say, this song was your alarm clock. You chose to wake up every day to this, and it is not your top 3.
The reason why it's not in my top 3 is the harmonies.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so.
That's fair.
One thing I want to highlight is, thematically in the song, at least setting off the gate, is the fact that, you get this idea of a plane crash, right? Mm-hmm. And in that first chorus, you get the parallel that he draws when he's saying, just like the setting sun is returned to the lonesome ocean. I thought that was a really cool idea. But yeah, you ready to move on to the next song, my dude?
The next song, and that is We Are Nowhere and It's Now. And once again, we find ourselves dealing with a song that seems like it's trying to make positive of a bleak situation, sort of a sequel to At the Bottom of Everything, where he basically is going through the same motions of, we're dealing with a lot of BS right now, but such as it is, c'est la vie. This is what life is, and we better just embrace it. Otherwise, it's going to be a very, very, very sad time. One thing I did notice, and this shocked me when I found out about this, because how many times have you listened to this album?
Within the past week, 3 to 4 times.
But ever?
A lot.
A lot? Okay. The only reason I bring that up is because about maybe 6-7 months ago, maybe not that long, but sometime in the past, we did an album by Lucinda Williams called Car Wheels on a Gravel Road. And I made mention of a singer that sang on one of the songs by the name of Emmylou Harrison. You were like, I don't know who that is. Yeah. Do you know who's singing back or the harmonies on this song?
Well, judging by the fact that you're leading me to the water, yeah, I can kind of make the connection.
Yeah, so I saw that I kind of laughed because I'm thinking, so this woman who's been singing harmony on this album that Ryan's been listening to for years, and you didn't know. You didn't put 2 and 2 together.
I put my pants on one leg at a time, man.
But all that to say that Emmylou Harris is a background vocalist on this song, and she does, as always, a fantastic job singing pleasantly in harmony with Conor Oberst. It does get a slight bit on the worry side, in my honest opinion, at the end. It starts veering from the basic general topic of, dealing with doom, and then just sort of throwing in idiom after idiom or simile after simile, and it's just kind of again, I don't necessarily need that chaos, but not enough to really mark it down too far. This is a solid album track. I'd put it in the good song bucket, but it's not my top 3.
There's going to be a lot of songs on this record that could have easily been in my top 3. This could have been one of them.
Gotcha.
So, just what really drew me into the song, and it's gonna be something I'm gonna talk about time and time again, specifically with this record, is the ability for Conor to portray authentic emotion. The lyrical content here, it's very self-deprecating, and you can almost kind of the way that Connor is delivering the vocals here, you honestly believe this is him having an argument with himself. Like, a lot of the, like, in the opening verse, like, you get right out of the gate, if you hate the taste of wine, why do you drink it till you're blind? Like, it's Connor questioning himself and, like, basically saying, hey, I'm a hypocrite, through several occurrences within this song here. And I absolutely love when when a artist is able to do that. And not only for the fact of exercising his own demons, but like the listener can exercise their demons as well. It's a communal exorcism, you know. It's the best kind of exorcism.
We're having an exorcism tonight at the community rec center. We have cookies, you know, bring some snacks if you want to.
Yeah. And like, just the instrumentation is so fantastic. I just love how it's so bare, but then you get the extra strings that come in at certain moments to highlight like certain passages. Really great. And the other thing I'm going to highlight here is the talk about the yellow bird. Like, it occurs at the last pre-chorus where he's talking about, did you forget that yellow bird? How could you forget your yellow bird? And the use of yellow bird in this circumstance is more about like a canary. And for the listener out there who's not aware of what I'm about to draw the comparison to, so like, you know, you ever hear about like, you know, the canary in the coal mine?
Yeah.
So like, he's trying to use the yellow bird as like, you know, hey, this is something bad's gonna happen. And like, you know, you have like a canary in the coal mine was used as like, oh, hey, if it starts freaking out or if it dies or anything like that, like that's when the miners have hit like carbon monoxide or just a dangerous area and they need to get out for their own safety. So I love that inclusion, and that yellow bird actually comes up later in the album too.
It does.
So I noted that, and I love it, man.
Yeah. No, this is a great song, too. And I think it's an interesting contrast to At the Bottom of Everything, not contextually, but sonically. Because whereas that song almost felt like, again, the band on the Titanic on steroids, or also maybe the FreeCreditReport.com guys and their joyous last moments on Earth. This is very much more polished. Like it almost seems like he could be singing this like in a city street, you know, in front of a crowd. And I would say that also bodes well for the next song, which is Old Soul Song for the New World Order.
So this is pretty much an anti-war song that I do like quite a good bit. And once again, Connor's vocal delivery is on point, and his lyrics are just absolutely fantastic. He's able to paint such vivid imagery, because you can really picture yourself going out and, like, you know, seeing the crowd and, like, how, like, you know, the police are, like, you know, trying to contain the crowd. Mm-hmm. And just one thing I noted is that, like, you know, on the surface, whenever someone's listening to this track here, they could be thinking like, oh, when he's talking about, hey, they go wild, like, oh no, like a riot broke out. But the way that the lyrics are basically undercut by the drop in instrumentation, like, it's almost just like, hey, this is a peaceful protest. Like, they really were very passionate, but they didn't, like, you know, they didn't start punching people in the face and, like, you know, start, like, you know, beating up on the cops. And maybe that's Connor's commentary on, like, you know, police control of riots. I don't know. I mean, I'm not Connor Oberst or anything like that. But I did notate that dropout. I thought that was a great moment. At the end, the build that he uses there is great. And I love this lyrics. I love this lyric here. Going, on the way home, I held your camera like a Bible, just wishing so bad that it held some kind of truth. And you think about, like, you know, what he's trying to say there. You know, the camera's used as a way to, like, you know, capture the moment. And what the moment is in this circumstance was like a protest, and he's trying to really believe in the protest that is occurring. I love his lyric writing. It is fabulous, man.
I agree wholeheartedly. I had that lyric written down as well because it is so striking. Just, this idea of holding something, something so strong. And not to mention, he's comparing it to a Bible where, again, saying just wishing so bad that it held some kind of truth. That in itself is a daring lyric because I'm sure a lot of people, especially a lot of country listeners, it's like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean the Bible might have some kind of truth? It is the truth, you bastard. Aside from that, though, I agree the dynamics on the song are fantastic. Again, with that dropout and then how it sort of really picks up at the end. Particularly Clark Bakley, who's the drummer on this song. Really sick drum fill towards the end. And the way it starts with that steel guitar and piano combo, very countryish, very sort of almost breezy type of volume. I like the song a lot too. It did not land in my top 3, but it's a very good song. It goes in that good song bucket.
So one criticism I'm gonna have about this song here specifically, I feel like it rides "They Went Wild" just a hair too much. Otherwise, fantastic song.
Yeah, that was a little repetitive, but at the same time, I think maybe that sort of plays into what he's talking about of, just wishing so bad that it held some kind of truth. Like, that's him telling himself, they went wild, they went wild, they went wild. As almost he's trying to convince himself that that's what happened. Oh. Like, he's just kind of grasping on it. Was like, they went wild, right? Like, this means something, right? Guys, am I the only one here? Oh, so bad. So that could play into the context of it. Again, that didn't turn me off, but it didn't really, be like, oh, whoa, that's a great moment. It is what it is.
All right. You ready to talk about the next track here, my dude?
Yes, the next track is Lua. And, oh boy, we go into a massively different direction. Because while the first 3 songs were very much full band efforts, whether it was the steel guitar and the piano on Old Soul Song, or the harmonies of Emmylou Harris on We Are Nowhere and It's Now, or again, the sort of playing, because we're all heading down into a spiral from this plane on At the Bottom of Everything with the weird background vocals there. This is just Conor Oberst and guitar. And my God, it works so well. It is so much more sparse and bleak compared to the previous tracks, not just in its tone, but in its lyrical content. I don't know exactly what the song is about, but if I had to guess, it's probably about dealing with someone, whether it be Conor himself or a friend of his, dealing with drug addiction. And it's acknowledging the bleakness that he's been trying to fight for 3 songs instead of trying to power through it. And that's why it sounds so sparse and bleak in of itself musically. The only pushes for hope throughout the song are in the inflections of his vocals, like on the choruses where he sees to sing a little stronger and, more hopefully than he is on the verse, because he sounds very hushed on this track for the most part. And the lyrics are fantastic too. The one lyric that really just shot at me through like a dart was, "We may die from medication, but we sure killed all the pain." I'm like, oh my goodness. Yeah, I really don't have anything else to say except it's my favorite song on the album by a country mile.
It could have cracked my top 3. This song does not crack my top 3.
Did not crack your top 3.
But it's in the slightly ever-expanding bucket of songs in this album here that I would be like, perfect song, no notes.
Right.
So I'm not going to really steal too much of your thunder. Like, that line that you referenced there, right on the money with you, man, because, that really just shot up my arm. Maybe that was an interesting choice of phrase there.
So I didn't even catch that.
But yeah, for me, the way I walked away from this track here, it's him talking about his battles with substance abuse. Like, you get the lyrics like you mentioned. In the chorus, you get, "The love I sell you in the evening by the morning won't exist." And there's just so many parallels on that, and the way that it's recorded, such in a sparse manner. That's always speaks to me personally. And just the cutting nature of the lyrics. Like, this stuff is it almost seems way too personal for Connor not to, like, have, like, some sort of, like, experience with this. And for that, I always commend an artist bringing that to the table. Excellent song. I don't really have any other notes you didn't already bring to the table.
Thank you. I was blown away by this song again because it's not often on any record ever really where it feels like the singer is just, I wouldn't say giving up because that would be a little too harsh to describe for this track, but at the same time, the first three songs, as I mentioned, are basically saying, okay, well, here we are, times are tough, but we're going to try to power through it and make it the best that we ever can, whether it's, fighting back the police or simply celebrating while going down with the ship. Here, there is absolutely nothing to be celebrated here. There's nothing that's trying to be celebrated. It's just, I'm down in the dumps and I need a little bit of hope. That's all that it is. And again, the fact that it's linked so sonically in its music too, being as stripped down as it is, again, just blew me away. So Lua is my number one favorite song on this album.
And I absolutely respect that. So we already went through two of your top three already.
We have two of my top three, and none of yours yet.
I know.
It's gonna get interesting.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So, the next song, Train Underwater.
Train Underwater.
And I love this song. It is simply one of my favorite Bright Eyes songs ever.
Oh.
Hearing this song live when Connor came to town like years ago, touring under one of his solo projects, it really sold the experience for me. And there was one time specifically whenever I was driving on Midnight Road and I hear the following lyrics: while the world waits for an explosion, that instant of life that wipes the slate clean. Yeah, that kind of hit me when I was driving on Midnight Road. So, yeah, man. Just, other elements I love about the song, it has that slight country twang to it. Especially, you can find that in the guitar solo, which isn't meant for a shredding purpose. It's more meant for a groove purpose. And I always love when artists do that. No disrespect to those guitarists out there who shred, but the intended purpose here is just to ride that groove. And I always love moments like that. And just the flow from the chorus to the post-chorus, it's absolutely fantastic. The way that it just flows so naturally. And it almost seems like you're riding a groove. You're riding a train that's going underwater. And just and also the third and fourth verses, I love them with how they strip back the instrumentation. And the third verse has some brilliant writing. You get lyrics like, well, if I could tame all my desires, wait out the weather that howls in my brain, because it seems that it's always changing. The wind's indecision, the sorrowful rain. He's talking about his state of mind there, man. In his complex indecision that's crippled by his anxiety, and just the way that everything starts out with lyrics that are talking about rebirth, dealing with the city, and just basically just dealing with life as a whole. I love this song, man. And can you guess what I'm about to say next?
It is your favorite song on the album?
It is my second favorite song.
Oh, so we still got one more.
Yeah, well,
two more, but
yeah, this is my second favorite song on the album.
Okay,
so,
I can respect that.
But yeah, I love the song, man.
Yeah, I like it too. It's not in my top three, but I really did like it a lot too. It easily goes in the good song bucket for me for a lot of the reasons you just mentioned. I love the chord selections on this song. I like the harmonies on this song as well. And I just like the fact that it sort of gets back on track Again, granted, Lua was a welcome, like, throw off the tracks, but this feels like the upbeat recovery from that song. Like, sequentially, this is Connor being like, no, I'm not gonna completely give up hope just yet. You know, I'm going to power through this, and we are going to power through this. And I'd say, as far as the trying to defy depression songs that we've talked about so far, I'd probably put this under the leadoff track, but above the other two. Because again, it feels very, and we've talked about this before as far as not just the sequentialness in the story, but the sequentialness as far as the sonic part of the album. So there are 10 songs on this album. This is the 5th song. And this feels like it's a good, solid closer to end out the first half by saying, okay, this is the end of part 1 of the story. It's not a very long story, but man, there's a lot of details in it. And the lyrics, like you mentioned, but I sing glory from my lowest, and I will say peace to the people I meet, while the world waits for an explosion, that instant of light that wipes the slate clean. I know you talked about driving on McKnight Road while listening to this song, which, first of all, very apropos. And secondly, and for those of you who don't know, McKnight Road, Pittsburgh, just look it up. You'll find a lot of nightmare stories. And secondly, though, I just feel like that in and of itself is like the perfect set of lyrics to encapsulate the entire album as a whole. Basically, him saying, I will sing glory from my lowest. He's at his lowest point. We saw him at his lowest point on Lua. And I will say peace to the people I meet. You know, he's advocating for peace like he was in Old Soul Song. And he's talking about, you know, while the world waits for an explosion, that instant of light that wipes the slate clean. And there's other lyrics of, you know, while the world waits for an explosion, that instant of light that wipes the slate clean. You know, he's basically been talking about that throughout the entire song, especially on At the Bottom of Everything. So, yeah, something about it didn't quite crack it for me, but man alive, it is. I'd probably say this is maybe at least in the top half of songs on the album. For me, it's a really good one.
So, up until my last listen of the album today, this was my favorite song on the album.
Oh.
But another song obviously beat it out. We'll get to it eventually.
We will.
So, but before we get into that, Matthew!
Yes, Ryan.
Got a question for you.
What's that?
If the listener out there is right now taking the train underwater right now with us, and it is the first day of their life by the way that they're experiencing us, you know, talk about this record here, and they really like what we're putting on the table. Like, what is the absolute best way that they can keep riding that train with us?
Well, the best way they can keep riding that train with us is to subscribe to us, whether it's on your favorite podcasting platform of choice, whether it's Spotify or Apple Music, or what other ones are we on? Or is it just those two?
We're on all, podcasting platforms.
Okay. Yeah, we're on all podcasting platforms of choice. We're also on YouTube, so if you find our YouTube channel, hey, listen to this, you know, give us a listen, give us a like, comment, subscribe. Also follow us on social media. We are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, we are on Threads, we are on Instagram, as I just learned the other day. And also, I just joined Blue Sky the other day, so you'll probably see some postings by there as well.
I've been thinking about making a Blue Sky page for us.
I would not be opposed to that.
Yeah,
I would not be opposed to that.
Maybe migrating off of X, but yeah, we'll see. So
yeah, because you know, we can't keep distracting this guy leading the Department of Government Efficiency. Anyways, yeah, just tell a friend about us. Give us a listen. I mean, we're on episode. I want to say we're close to our 60th episode by now at this point. Mm-hmm. We release episodes every Saturday. So if you are listening, make sure you do that. Also, sometimes we may put episodes on platforms when they just decide to pop up, like the Warren Zevon one. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, that one just popped up on a random Sunday. So it's like, oh, that could happen too. But again, thank you to all who have supported us so far. Again, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, YouTube, podcasting platform of choice. It's, hey, listen to this. And yeah, tell a friend about us and keep listening.
So, the next track, Matthew, is First Day of My Life.
First Day of My Life. Now, this is a pretty straightforward song about starting anew. I did like how, much like Lua, we basically just get Connor with acoustic guitar. It's very stripped down. In fact, I almost consider that to be a complete contrast to Lua, because this song is basically saying, okay, this is the first day of my life. This is the first day of my new life. Now that I am choosing to sing glory and choose peace and say peace to all, this is how things are going to be. So I think that's a nice solid contrast. I think the acoustic guitars and once again the chord changes match the lyrics very well. It seems like almost you can imagine him waking up in his apartment and, staring out in the sunrise and being like, good morning world, let's do this. Not my top 3, but it's a solid song.
So this is probably the most well-known Bright Eyes song ever.
Really? This one?
Yeah, it's been used in a lot of movies.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's fair.
But yeah, I really love this song as well. It goes in that bucket of songs that I consider to be perfect. Like there's nothing really wrong with this, and I really really enjoy it for a lot of the reasons that you already mentioned. And I'm just gonna highlight again that the way that Connor delivers his vocals here. Chef's kiss, man. There's no notes about that. You really think about him portraying authentic emotion. It doesn't get any better than this track here. I mean, there's other tracks here where I basically said that, but he's such a good such a good vocalist, and it's interesting that he, I'm saying this, considering, in one of the lyrics in one of the last songs here, he basically kind of slams his own vocals, but I digress. In the chorus of the song here, I love how he slows down the instrumentation to highlight certain phrases where he just breaks it up, and I thought that was an excellent touch. Love the lyrics where he's talking about, I'd rather be working for a paycheck than waiting to win the lottery. That's his message to this other person that he's basically falling in love with, saying hey, I'm going to be working at this relationship every single day. And I'd rather do that than, just hit the lottery and just be hey, I've done it. I don't have to work for it, because, real love is whenever you put in the work, not just go through the honeymoon phase, skip to the marriage, and bam. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that usually doesn't end up well. Let's be real. So the other thing that I'm going to highlight here is the choice at the end where instead of just cutting off the song after the last set of lyrics, Connor lets the instrumentals basically carry out the song, and that's the message to the listener, being hey, you just sit with the feelings of the song that I just gave you just for maybe 30 more seconds. I thought that was an excellent touch. I love this song, man.
Yeah, and I know you've talked about before, again, particularly with the Cure episode, about letting songs breathe and how that's always a good idea, which I agree with. But yeah, no, this is a solid track for me. Are you ready to move on to another traveling song?
Yeah, man, I am. So I like the song a good bit. It might be the only song on the album that goes in the good song or great song bucket. Doesn't take away from anything from the track itself, just in comparison to the other tracks here. It's kind of your rye bread, really good quality rye bread that's toasted and has a nice little butter spread on it. This track here, though, bread comparisons aside, I do dig how it's a nice country-infused jam session. You get that other, country, element to it. I like the line where he's talking about taking a train back where he belongs, because, earlier in the album we talked about train underwater. It brings up train again. I love the thematical connection there. excellent touch. And just the flow of the song, man, it's just so freaking tight. Like, it just seems like it sounds literally like a train. Like, you're just riding down the road. It's very, I would say maybe it's a very Johnny Cash influence where, like, you know, you get the the way the instrumentation's set up and just the flow of it, it's very focused. And I just came up with that comparison right now. And I love how my brain's working today. And just in the third verse where the guitar cuts out and you just hear the bass and drums, always a fan of instrumental change-ups like that. And, you know, you think about how the choruses are laid out here. And I love how they are, you know, basically contrasting in nature, in that I'm trying to vamp here so I can actually bring up the choruses here. I love how, like, I'm just continuing on this sentence right now. So, you know, you get in the first chorus, he's talking about, so I go back and forth forever. All my thoughts, they come in pairs. Oh, I will, I won't. I doubt, I don't. I'm not surprised, but I never feel quite prepared. And then you get in the second chorus, he's talking about, so I will find my fears and face them, or I will cower like a dog. I will kick and scream, or kneel and plead. I will fight like hell to hide that I've given up. So the way he delivers that's fantastic. I love the contrast there. Overall, pretty cool song. Doesn't land in my top 3.
So I do have this in my top 3. I have it at number 2. And the reason for that is that a lot of the things you said about how this song has a great groove, it's very upbeat, and it's a very tight performance by the band. But the lyrics that stood out to me were not the choruses, but the verses. Because to me, this feels like an entire cheat code of a song. It's basically a song that is written about songwriting and the problem of songwriting while you're trying to be on tour. According to Genius.com, one of our favorite sources, right before this album's release, Oberst did a lot of traveling, not like he's ever stopped, singing with the likes of R.E.M., Bruce Springsteen, and Neil Young. So he's basically lamenting about how he's trying to stay creative while on the road, which is not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, period, if you're on the road or otherwise. But when you're on the road and you have to repeat these same songs over and over and over again, you have to listen to these same songs over and over and over again. Like, that's going to be hard for you to, like, try to pull something fresh out of. It might be a nice escape, but sometimes you just don't have the energy to do that. And then when it just feels like this song is, like, because it's about songwriting and the struggles of doing it, that he can pretty much get away with whatever the hell he wants to write. So in verse 3, he's talking about, now I'm hunched over a typewriter. I guess you call that painting in a cave. And there's a word I can't remember and a feeling I cannot escape. And then in the fourth verse, well, I dream of dark on the horizon. I dream a desert where the dead lay down. I dream a prostitute child touching an old man in a fast food crowd. I'm just like... He's just basically just throwing spaghetti at the wall, knowing that that's what his meal is going to be. He's going to peel it off the wall and eat it. And that kind of like cheat code mentality really just sort of like, again, struck me. I'm thinking he's found the code. He's just going to complain about a song, you know, writing a song while writing a song and sing the song that he's complaining about writing. To me, that is genius. But aside from that, again, band sounds great. Emmylou Harris once again pops up as a background singer, doing harmony with Connor. It's number 2 on the top 3 for me. It's a great song.
You might have just elevated my appreciation about the song as a whole. Like I kind of knew what he was going for, but the way that you talked about it kind of got me a little bit jacked up about the song.
It's a great song because again, it's for a lot of this album, he's feel like very hopeful and very bleak at times, very, hushed down. But this is the first time where he feels like so confident that he's kind of tired of it. Like he can actually take a moment to be cynical about being a singer-songwriter. And granted, some may listen to that as like, oh, shut up, quit complaining, but not me. I like it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you ready to move on to Land Landlocked Blues.
Yes, moving on to Landlocked Blues. And I'll start with the positives that I have about this song. Once again, it's very stripped down, and it's just guitar and vocals, but this time it's not just Connor. Once again, Emmylou Harris provides harmony. And sonically speaking, this is one of the best songs on the album. Her singing is great, his singing is great, the guitar is great, and also there's a trumpet at the end of the song. There's a trumpet. And I didn't realize until the end of the song that the trumpet was playing taps. So I was just like, oh, okay, interesting. That's because, again, taps supposed to be solemn, and it's sort of, gets more upbeat at the end, because the band does kick in towards the end. But my one complaint about the song, and again, the performance kept it from being my least favorite song on the album, but man, is it so wordy. I'm sorry. Like, this track just, it feels like whatever, like, linear, like, projection of thought that Connor had throughout the entirety of this album kind of goes away here. Like, it feels like a lot of the stuff that he's talking about are, like, in-jokes or references only he gets. And then it kind of just jumps around and around and doesn't really tell a story as much as, share a bunch of thoughts, like you're scrolling through someone's Facebook feed. So that kind of turned me off a little bit. But again, it's sung so well and performed so well that I can't demote it that far down. It's a solid song. Like, if you're listening out front to back, you'll probably not think anything of it. But if you're, like, paying attention, it's like, he's starting to sort of get a little crazy here. But it's probably my least favorite song on the album. But I'm not going to denounce it as my least favorite song, because it's still a good performance, a great performance, I would say, of okay lyrics.
This is my third favorite song on the album.
Okay, here we go.
So, it's not my favorite. So, like, you didn't step across a landmine here.
Yeah, I didn't invoke a fight.
Yeah, no. And we never really fight. Like,
no.
Like, we almost fought in our last episode, apparently, but...
I think the last episode, it wasn't so much like... It wasn't so much like I was offended by what you were saying. I just didn't, like, agree with it objectively at all. Like, I did not hear the same things you heard. But that wasn't so much of a how dare you. It was just like I almost confused myself. Like, you did like a Psyduck thing or something like that. Like, both Pokemon are now confused.
Anyways, getting into my thoughts and feelings about this track here, like, I will start by addressing the criticism that you had about, like, the wordiness of the lyrics. And the way that you address the criticism, I will agree with you to an extent. However, I feel like what he was trying to capture is just kind of like a state of mind, as opposed to telling a cohesive, story. Which, I mean, some people like, mustard on their hot dogs. Some people like ketchup. And there's some people who like relish. And then there's some people who are like, what is a hot dog?
Right. There are some people who, will put barbecue sauce. Underrated, by the way. That would be me.
Okay, I'll have to try it sometime. But, yeah, just the solemn nature of this song here. And, I love how the way that Genius.com set this song up as, the way it basically said that this song was about Connor dealing with just a mature way of, walking away from a relationship. And the way that premise was expanded upon with the duet nature of the vocals, I felt like that was an excellent touch. I would disagree with him a little bit about, this is him walking away from a relationship in a mature way, because you get lyrics that, I found a liquid cure for my landlocked blues. It'll pass away like a slow parade. It's leaving, but I don't know how soon. You talk about, one sense that I got with that lyric here is that we talk about landlocked blues in a lot of the themes that Connor has been trying to, chase in a couple of the songs here, At the Bottom of Everything, Train Underwater, where he's talking about like the spirit of rebellion and trying to like live in the world. But in this song here, he feels like he's trapped in the world. And you talk about like a liquid cure, that's alcohol. Like that's his coping mechanism, and like I don't know, like I really did dig a lot of what this song here had to offer, and like one set of lyrics that really got me like in my feels is and the world's got me dizzy again. You think after 22 years I'd be used to the spin, and it only feels worse when I stay in one place. So I'm always pacing around or walking away. And the way that he's talking about, like just walking away, walk this way. Aerosmith saw that and was just like, hey.
They traveled back in time 30 years. Was like, hey, let's do this.
Yeah, pretty much. But anyways, like I really did dig what this song had to offer. It kind of caught me off guard because I really didn't appreciate this song nearly as much before we did the review.
Yeah, no, I can respect that. It's, again, musically it's one of the best songs on the album, and there's no denying that whatsoever. And again, the lyrics being what they are, I wasn't a big fan of them, but not so much that I was like nitpicking. It's like, it is a bad song now. It's still a good song. It's still a good song to listen to, and again, if you have this on the background and you're not really like paying attention to the lyrics, you're probably gonna think, man, that song's really good. So performance in a music setting counts for a lot. So that's why I cannot like denounce it as my least favorite song.
So, Matthew.
Yes, Ryan.
We have 2 more songs left.
We do have 2 more songs left, and we have only scratched the surface of your top 3, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, so before we move into Poison Oak, do you want to lock in mentally? What do you think my favorite song is?
Not this one.
You are correct, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I as soon as I realized that neither Lua nor At the Bottom of Everything were your favorite songs, I'm thinking, I bet I know what it is. But we will start with not that song, and we will start with Poison Oak.
So, with Poison Oak here, it's another fantastic song. I love the way that the song builds in such a great way. It starts out soft and builds with emotion. And the way when I'm talking about like emotion, the way that Connor delivers the opening lyrics of Poison Oak, some boyhood bravery, like it's a very soft spoken kind of like almost like a very sad and timid kind of lyric, and then you get the ending lyric of the end of paralysis. I was a statuette. Now I'm drunk as hell on a piano bench. I'm like, that's an emotional climax. I really did dig that. And earlier in the album, we talked about the yellow bird, right?
Yes, we did.
The yellow bird came back.
The yellow bird came back.
And at the very end of this song here, he's talking about, and I never thought this life was possible. You're the yellow bird that I've been waiting for. Like, I really dig the inclusion of that. I love when artists can pick and choose and almost have like a lyrical through line through different songs within an album. It gives the album brownie points in my opinion. But yeah, dude, like I do dig the song quite a bit. Not as much as the next song, but we'll get to that.
We will get to that. But first, my thoughts on Poison Oak. I liked it too. I was good again, kind of coming off a little bit of a meh with Landlocked Blues. And this is better, mainly because it starts with a stripped down, hush vocals, very similar to Lua. And then kind of out of nowhere, it goes into a full band mode. But ultimately, the lyrics are very good, dealing with the death of a loved one, because it feels like, again, it almost feels like it's a sequel to Lua the other way. Like we talked about how Train Underwater was sort of a contrasting sequel. This is more of a, I guess for lack of a better term, bad ending sequel where this person that he was dealing with substance abuse, or someone that he knew during that time is gone now, and the yellow bird is, suffered the consequences of their actions or for the actions of the world. And now he's just caught off guard and frustrated about it. In position wise, too, it almost reminds me of the penultimate track off of Brave Face's Everyone. The one that I thought was good but didn't like because it was so depressingly bad because it was about a school shooting. That's kind of the same vibe I get with this one. Not quite as dire or bleak, but definitely in that same category of, well, you're gone now and this sucks. So, yeah. I like this song quite a bit.
So, it is time, man.
It is time. It is time to close this album out with Road to Joy. And I will start before you get into explaining why this is your favorite song on the album. First of all, I love the way that it sort of inverts the melody of Ode to Joy by Beethoven, which the song musically is based off of. It definitely has that same sort of tempo, but not quite the same pulse of chaos as Ode to Joy as. It's sort of like inverted note-wise. And it definitely, once again, going back to Brave Faces Everyone, it reminds me of sort of this reality of, okay, we're going to wrap things up, but at the same time, nothing is wrapped up. We're just getting started, and we're just going to go into full-blown chaos mode. Like, this is finally him saying once and for all, we are going to choose joy. We are going to choose peace. We are going to make the best of whatever it is that comes our way. And instead of putting on a brave face, he puts on a happy face, or at the very least, a happy face that was borrowed from Nicolas Cage. Because, man, this song is chaotic, too.
Yeah.
Especially in that last part where, he tells everyone, like, let's make some noise, and then it goes to like pure chaos mode. And I know that's so you-coded, I'll let you go into full... I'll let you go into why that is... one of your probably favorite things ever. I liked it a lot, and maybe on future listens it could land in my top 3. It did not this time around, though, but I'd say probably right with a couple of the others. This is going to easily... I would say this lands on my top half of the album.
So, I absolutely love the fact that through the evolution of this podcast here, we basically picked up on our own musical, ticks and turn on,
yeah,
turns off, yeah. Like that's if anything comes from this podcast, ultimately, we know what makes each other tick.
To be fair though, at the start of the episode, I thought the opener was going to be your favorite song just because of how much you've, especially with me and your wife, been like, you guys gotta listen to this song, or hey, let's just put this song in so I can remind you it exists. Not this song so much.
Oh man, I really don't have all that much to cover on this song that you already haven't touched. Like you talked about the play on the Ode to Joy by Beethoven. It's called Road to Joy.
Yeah,
you get it.
I get it.
So
that was the joke.
The way that Connor and company, they ride the groove in the motif of this song here, it draws me in such a immense fashion that I just really am just a sucker for it. And just the lyrics as well, really just do a great job summarizing, a lot of his anxieties about, modern world and his place in it. You get lyrics like, I have my drugs, I have my woman, they keep away my loneliness. And then he compares that to, his upbringing and, what his parents, have tried to teach him, where he's talking about, my parents, they have their religion, but sleep in separate houses. And that's allusion to, oh, hey, his parents got divorced. I was kind of making mockery of religion in its own right. the one section that you highlighted where he's talking about let's fuck it up, boys, make some noise. Chef's kiss. No notes.
That's so feral, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like something he'd enjoy.
Yeah, pretty much. And another thing I'm just gonna highlight here is the way that the song begins is how the song ends, but the way that the song has taken the listener through an emotional journey, not only through dynamics but just performance in its own right. Like it adds a nice it adds a nice through line, and just saying, oh hey, we talked about like this idea of like the sun came up with no conclusion, and we're going back to it, but now we've gone through all the emotions, like kind of like drawing a comparison to the album as a whole. Absolutely love this song, man. For me, it came down to pure enjoyment factor comparing this song to Train Underwater. Not to take anything away from that song. That is a fantastic song in its own right. But, like, this song here, like, when I really thought about it, the comparisons, not comparisons, but the fact that it riffs on Ode to Joy, and it, like, draws a lot of the lyrical themes, everything to a close, easily my favorite song on the album.
Completely understandable and respectable. Again, I really like the song a lot too. And again, maybe on future lists I'll be like, Ryan knew what he was talking about. But yeah, no, we end it with Road to Joy, and at the conclusion we can at least say one thing.
We did it!
We did it, man. We became wide awake because it is morning.
Good,
it wasn't that good.
It was you stuck the landing.
Yeah,
you stuck the landing.
An attempt was made.
So I'm gonna go first with my overall thoughts and ratings here. For me, this was another album alongside Because of the Times by Kings of Leon. Side note, we did a review on that album. Go check that out in a back catalog there. That helped shaped my musical appreciation and my musical taste buds. Even when you were drawing comparisons to Brave Faces Everyone, I never really saw the through line there. Maybe that's why I appreciate bands like Spanish Love Songs to a degree, and the way that I get sucked into really great lyricisms, and that's the first thing that I notice within songwriting, when it comes to lyrical focus. I love how this album has aged so well in today's day and age with thoughts about anxiety and substance abuse, and it's a sad state of affairs that this album was written 19 years ago.
Yeah. it might have been written 20 years ago, but released 19 years ago.
Yeah, holy cow, dude. But yeah, Connor's lyrics and vocal delivery and his songwriting are on point. It's not a perfect album for me, but I'm going to give this album a strong 9.5 out of 10.
I completely understand that. I knew it was going to be high up there because you've been, again, lauding it so much. Me, I'm going to be right there with you, not score-wise, but sort of in the same feelings. This is my first introduction to Bright Eyes, and what a great introduction it was. Again, just this weird trip through this guy's outpouring feelings, whether it's, the fights for hope on most of the album, or taking a step back to realize how bleak a situation is, and, the way that, again, the sonic parallels between his vocals and the music and his feelings is so great throughout the album. The sequencing is great. And I kind of thought about how much I really did like this album. And ultimately, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10 because it falls in that category of I want to listen to this album again, but I'm not clamoring to listen to this album again. Because I gave Brad a 9, and that's an album I know in my mind I need to go back and listen to at some point in my life, and I'm probably right there with this album too. Maybe a slight step back because I don't think it was as revolutionary as Brad. Not that I'm comparing them sonically. It's just how dare you not be Brad? Come on now, let's be real with us. But yeah, no, 8.5 out of 10. Great album from Bright Eyes.
So one could say you're more of a brat compared to being an emo boy.
I don't know what to do with that.
I caught you off guard there, man. So I give it a 9.5. You gave it an 8.5, and that makes our scores collectively an even 9 out of 10.
Because math.
Math works, ladies and gentlemen. For me, if the listener out there has enjoyed I'm Wide Awake It's Morning and they want to check out another album, the next album that I would recommend from here would be, the other Bright Eyes album that I hold up in high regard, and that would be Lifted, or The Story Is in the Soil, Keep Your Ear to the Ground. It's a little bit more raw compared to this album here. It was released a little bit earlier, I think 2003, according to my notes here. I could be wrong. However, fantastic album. Go check out that album if you enjoyed I'm Wide Awake It's Morning.
And no surprise what my recommendation is going to be, because I referenced it about 9,000 dozen times at the end of the album review that we just did. And it's an album that we have talked about on Hey Listen to This before, and that is the 2020 release, Brave Faces Everyone by Spanish Love Songs. A bit more of a pessimistic album, or an anxiety-ridden album compared to this one. But the sonic themes are very much the same. The sequentialness of it is very much the same. A lot of the topics are very much the same, and it still holds up in relevance. And it sort of follows the same arc of going from what do we do now to I guess this is what we're going to do now, and taking as many of life's dips and turns as it will. Again, great sonic album. I still have Losers 2 in my regular rotation. Thanks to that episode and that review. Brave Faces Everyone is my next recommended album based off of I'm Wide Awake It's Morning.
So to recap the ending of the review here, I gave it a 9.5, you gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I'm recommending the next album the listeners tune into would be Lifted, or The Story Is in the Soil, Keep Your Ear to the Ground. Excellent album name, by Bright Eyes. And you are recommending Brave Faces Everyone. So, that summarizes everything. Go check out those albums. I recommend both of those albums highly.
Yeah, no. In fact, I think you gave that one a 10, if I'm not mistaken, didn't you?
Lifted or this? Oh, no. Brave Faces Everyone.
Yeah. Pretty sure you did.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
Yeah, because I think I gave it a 9, you gave it a 10.
Yeah, it seems right, because it's a very foundational.
And if you're wondering if we're actually telling the truth, go back and listen to the episode and find out for yourself.
Fact check us! I dare you!
Speaking of daring, Mr. Kearns.
I'm ready.
So, for the last few of my selections, we've sort of teetered around the late 60s and late 70s, with the one exception, I think, being Sabrina Carpenter. So we've done a lot of pop and rock over the last few choices of mine. I'm going to switch things up a little bit, and I'm also going to switch things up time-wise, because aside from Sabrina Carpenter, most of what I've done is from the 60s or 70s. I'm going to go to the 90s this time.
Oh, okay.
And I'm kind of bracketing it out, because I have 4 albums that I'm going to have you choose from.
Oh, my God.
But you're only going to choose one.
Okay.
So I'm going to start by letting you choose between 2 genres.
Okay.
And those genres are hip-hop or country.
Country.
Country, okay. And now I'm going to make you choose between 2 years. Okay. 1992 or 1996?
92.
92, okay. All right, so we are going to go back to 1992 and talk about a country album, a debut country album of sorts, by one Wynonna Judd.
Ooh.
So we're going to be talking about a country album from a year that is very historic in country music history. Whether this album or not will be historic, that's for us to decide.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you've not listened to that Wynonna Judd album yet, make sure you check it out before next week's review. That way you're familiar with what me and Matt are going to be talking about here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man.
It's a solid one. I'm curious to find out what you think about this type of country, because we're talking early 90s country. We're not talking late 90s country. We're talking early 90s. And there is a difference.
We're gonna see like how much country I can really dig.
Yeah, because this isn't like Lucinda Williams or I won't even say it's like Toby Keith either, because there's a lot more. You'll find out. I don't want to spoil anything for you.
Yeah. So yeah, just wrapping up this review here, man. Just just the world right now. It's really dragging me down. But I'm gonna just I'm gonna put this out there. Are you ready?
What's that?
So, I hope I don't sound too ungrateful what history gave modern man.
Oh.